Yo guys, it's Stoic. We're back again for another episode of the podcast. Today we're going to break down another couple of tracks and I've got a top 5 segment at the end. There's going to be a playlist in the description. I hope you enjoy. I'm with my producer Paz. We're going to start on a song I released in January. This one's called Neon Sheep. Yeah, so I wrote this one back in 2019. I was in a darker place back then, but I still wanted to write something a little bit more hopeful. And those chords kind of reminded me a little bit of London Grammar and maybe Wicked Game with Chris Isaac. And the chords just brought the melodies together quite quickly.
And then I think we were focusing quite a lot on the use of reverbs and things on the guitars, trying to create the atmosphere and the ambience.
Yeah. Somehow it ended up making it sound like more hopeful. Do you know what I mean? So I think it was on a razor blade, and it could have gone either way towards being like really happy or really sad. You know?
Yeah, you kind of want to achieve something that's almost euphoric, but it can't be euphoric because it's also quite melancholy as well, and you have to sit somewhere in between. And also from a release point of view, you don't want to be putting out something that's really happy in January when everyone's fed up because they're in lockdown. They're not going to like it very much.
Back in Groundhog Day, yeah.
Exactly. But you don't want to be too dour and depressing because likewise people need some hope. So it's really difficult to get that balance. But yeah, I think we kind of achieved that pretty much.
Yeah, it makes you think though, what other songs do you know that seem happy but are actually sad? I can think of a couple, but...
Yeah, it's a tough one actually. A couple of bands, I suppose, who are quite well known for that. Pink Floyd being one of them. You know, you think about "Wish You Were Here," you think about "Comfortably Numb." They're kind of amazingly beautiful, in some ways uplifting records, and yet quite morose and melancholy.
Beautifully tragic.
Yeah. Good way of describing it. What about you? Can you think of any?
I guess the one comes to mind is like "Hey Ya," Outkast. Like when you listen to that, that's a jam. Do you know what I mean? You want to dance to it at a wedding, but in reality, it's about relationships coming to an end.
Yeah. Speaking of coming to an end, the lockdown hopefully is coming to an end fairly soon.
We hope so. Yeah.
God willing. And I don't know about you, but it's been quite strange, kind of having a face-to-face conversation. You find when you go into a shop now and you're standing there, you're so not used to actually talking to people.
Yeah, being an introvert, I've kind of enjoyed this space. Trying to cobble this together has been a testament to that.
It's taken a while.
Yeah.
Just for the viewers at home.
So what song are we doing next? We've got Fear No Fight, haven't we? I think the most notable thing about this song when the first time we listened to it is the weird time signature, the weird sway it has to it. And I mean, when I sat down and wrote this with the chords, I never intended it to come out like this. It's just how it seemed to, like, it just had that push chord in it, which gives it that weird kind of shuffle feel to it. It's like being in a Texas barn dance, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I don't know because I've never been in one, but
but I mean, you've heard it on TV.
I remember at the time it was that when you played it to me, I said to you, "Are you aware that this is in 7/4, which is a really difficult time signature?" Not that it's a problem. There are a few, songs which are in that sort of time signature. I mean, "Money" by Pink Floyd is in a strange time signature. It just kind of makes it quite difficult because certainly from the drum point of view, there's no downbeat and there's no upbeat per se because it lands on an odd number. So I think that was the biggest challenge for us, wasn't it? It was getting the rhythm part
really
right.
Weird production, and it's the way it kind of like zooms in and zooms out again. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think going back to the discussions we had at the time, it felt like sort of kind of almost like fighting fantasy. You too young to remember that, but that kind of, this is pre-Game of Thrones, but going back to that whole kind of almost like medieval fantasy world, and we were trying to get instrumentation that kind of felt a little bit like that because the lyric was
kind of like
much
ethereal soundscape.
Exactly. What would be interesting is to know what other people make of the track, lyrically, musically, because obviously we're intimately familiar with it. But
yeah, that's a good point. It'd be great to hear what everyone else thought of the song. What was their favourite lyric? So this is Top 5 segment of the show where I ask each guest what their top 5 musical experiences are. So to start, Paz, when was the first live gig you attended? Who was leading the show?
First live gig? Cool. Probably the first proper gig I went to was either Billy Joel back in the mid-80s or really probably Prince in 1988 at Wembley. That's the first like real proper big gig. He was at the height of his powers and
Nice.
success at that time. So yeah, it was pretty amazing.
Yeah. What album was he touring?
At that time, it would have been Love Sexy, which wasn't a great album for me, but because he did all the kind of the other stuff, Purple Rain, Around the World in a Day, 1999, and at that point, for me, he could do no wrong. So
Yeah, he got the whole band with him. He's on point.
Oh, it's amazing.
Unbelievable talent. What do you reckon's your most played song?
Again, difficult because I used to cane quite a few when I was a kid on my Walkman on my way to school. I can think of a few, but probably Micro Kid by Level 42. Just something about it, just really, a really informative point in my life musically. It ticked all the boxes.
Nice. What's the best song your parents introduced you to?
Well, my parents introduced me to a load of weird stuff because they were into really weird music. So probably a lot of the early kind of electronic music like Jean-Michel Jarre, Kraftwerk, that kind of stuff really.
Nice. Never heard of it, but I'll
Check
look
it
forward
out,
to seeing that on a playlist. All right, what's your favourite band? That's a difficult question, but if you can narrow
Really
it down.
difficult. Yeah, I got a bunch of favourite bands and artists. Obviously, Prince is in there, Kate Bush, Nick Drake, but probably band-wise, Steely Dan.
Unbelievable talent.
You can never get fed up with listening to Steely Dan, so
No.
I'd say, Steely Dan.
Yeah, that's a fair choice. What's the most recent track, album, or artist that caught your attention?
I think there was one particular track which I just heard, and it reminded me a lot of kind of the mid-'80s kind of sound of people like the Thompson Twins, and that was a guy I think called Declan McKenna, I think his name is, and it was a track called Beautiful People. I love the production, just a great sounding record.
Yeah, great song. It's weird, the 80s has kind of made like a resurgence in music.
It never went away, mate. The 80s was much maligned, but 90% of what's going on now, when you listen to Dua Lipa, you listen to The Weeknd, a lot of that stuff is coming directly from the stuff that was going on in the 80s. It never really went away. It just got kind of laughed at for a bit, and then it snuck its way back into.
Yeah, hearing a lot of more like saxophones lately as well.
You got a thing for saxophone, haven't you?
Mate, yeah, it's something about them. But it was weird because when I mentioned the idea before, it was like the saxophone is like that's how you get shot. Do you know what I mean? Like there was a time in music where that just died, and saxophones were no longer cool.
It's kind of got a perception of being a little bit corny, and it did. Unfortunately, the 80s was largely responsible for that because there were a lot of cheesy saxophone solos, like guitar solos with the guy. He's on a mountain top. He's got his foot on a rock, and his hair's blowing in the wind. That's kind of where it comes from. But as an instrument, the saxophone is very cool. I'm not against the instrument itself, but I don't want any on your tracks, all right?
Nah, that's fine. All right, you can put the gun away. All right, that wraps up the show. Thank you for listening, guys. If you liked it, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. You can find my music on Spotify. You can find me on socials. Have a good day. Peace out.